coming back to where it's all started for me. So by profession, I'm a holistic psychotherapist, and holistic psychotherapy is a approach focuses on the mind, the body, and the spirit aspect of us humans. And the Psychedelic Conversations came about through my own journey and through my work with other people who are in the healing arts, and people that are interested and drawn or have a call to using psychedelics as means to their healing or self-development process. So, and like you said earlier, the podcast idea came through because I need to continually keep myself outside of my comfort zone. And
that's important.
Yeah, as a therapist, we do get trained to listen, say less, hear more. But the podcasting really gave me probably the boost, maybe 10x the active listening part of the therapy. So it's really great all around.
So do you do therapy with the aid of psychedelic substances? Is that pretty much the gist of it?
Yeah, I can be a guide. I can also facilitate. I can also help support the microdosing journeys. All kinds of, it involves, it's a whole spectrum of psychedelics as a medicine in healing arts, and also, like I said, self-awareness, self-development, all those things that we love.
That's what they're meant for. It's meant for healing and self-development. And I think sometimes, yeah, you do need somebody to be there, like as a guide, to guide you through these states of mind, to integrate them in the way that they're kind of supposed to be used. I don't know if supposed to be is the right word, but you can use these things as tools to better your entire being, mentally, spiritually, physically. You can do this and use these tools and actually become a better person from it, and be happier. Isn't that what we all want? A sense of freedom, a sense of happiness, or sense of purpose. You can use these plant medicines. I don't know which ones specifically you use, but we can get into that. But you can use certain ones, and if you have the certain guidance, whether from yourself or from another person that is experienced with it, you can become and utilize that a better person because of it. And it's a beautiful thing. And it pains me to know that there's people out there like you doing your thing, and that's probably your passion. And there's thousands, if not millions, of others out there that either are on your wavelength or need the help from people on your wavelength. And we live in a society where it's very, very illegal, very, very prohibited. And it's unfortunate because it is what this world needs right now. It's a sense of healing. And we are neglecting that. We're not. I mean, what do you do exactly? So say I come in, I say I'm feeling a little depressed. I've been in this depressive rut for the last 5 years. What do I got to do? What do you need to give me? So what would you do?
Yes, that's a great question. So we cannot, as we cannot force psychedelics on people, and we cannot recommend unless it is a calling for them and they actually ask. Sometimes they find it naturally, or as the indigenous people would say, the medicine will find you somehow. Nowadays it's not that difficult anymore, because the medicine will find you with the increase in technology and social media platforms. Now people can, literally on Facebook, you probably just one scroll, you can see so many psychedelic posts. So it's not like a big secret anymore, not like before. So firstly, like, we're going through a really interesting time in psychedelic space where it's becoming super mainstream right now. It's just number one topic. Everybody's talking about it.
It's still very illegal. That's the thing. It's a weird time where it's like, it's kind of like a little bit taboo still, because it's still illegal, but the cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, that's it. And biotech companies are moving in. Scientists are really going hard in the studies and the cases and the research that they are doing, which is great because we need to know more. So now people would literally come already knowing some aspects of psychedelic medicines and how it's used, and they will know exactly why they are, they need to come to psychedelic medicine. So the way we work, especially the group microdosing, we have a process, 6-week cycle process, where they come in and they learn all the aspects of microdosing from scratch, guided, supported, and all the research material, resources are given. And usually they're very neutral, because we do not promote medicine, the psychedelic medicines. I call them medicines, to be honest. Some people might be uncomfortable, but they are sacred teaching plant medicines. So, and people would come in already knowing where they are stuck and what is it that they cannot just move through. Like, we all know deep down, as much as we say we don't know what the problem is, I'm stuck, but we deep down have a feeling or inkling, what is it that we need to do? So I always think of psychedelic medicine as a tool, and it can help a person to have that breakthrough, but the work still relies on the person. Mm-hmm. So this is what we do. We are fully interested in the educational part, informing the person, so they don't go into it blindly by just reading. And again, this is another issue, that a lot of people who they call themselves, they're proud of themselves as being a solo psychonaut, where they go and explore crazy amounts of psychedelics and then make videos and post a lot on social media. Mm-hmm. But what they are doing is they are most of the time just sharing and projecting their own. And this is the problem we're having right now. And a lot of people take it on, and that develops an kind of like an expectation in others. So when they come into this medicine or the work, I always say, firstly, let's drop all the things that you've heard and read and have all those expectations. Let's drop them, because this is an individual, unique journey of your own, and we cannot know what's in store for you. Mm-hmm. And especially if someone's coming to psychedelic space with the intention of talking to aliens and seeing the visions, and if they're interested in that, the trippy side, then it's not, there is no authentic intention there. But sometimes it's okay, though. They come in with that kind of intention. They soon realize, oh my God, this is a serious work.
Yeah.
But it kind of works out in the end. But I always say that it's very difficult to know how to work with the medicines unless there is a guide, unless someone's been through the process, unless someone really knows what they're doing, and also it needs to come from a very unbiased, detached, neutral place. Like, we have to be super careful not to promote, not to think of them as a cure for all, because there is some serious, deep personal work that lies beyond the medicine or the psychedelic tripping. So there's that's the foundation of everything we do and offer: educational, safe, harm reduction, dropping expectations, and really being clear on what the intention is. I don't have any issues with recreational use, as long as it's in a safe space and a setting, and with respect to the medicines. Yeah.
So you're just like an educator when it comes down to it, like just somebody that shows people how to use the tools in the correct way, right? And yeah, that's important. That's very set and setting, pretty much. I mean, it's more than just the chemical compound. It's also like how you use these things, and that's kind of something that I feel like we don't talk about enough. I mean, definitely starting to, just proof of what we're doing right now and what you do specifically. Definitely is becoming a thing, but I don't think it was, because these things have been with us forever, pretty much. But I mean, in the 20th and early 21st century, people weren't really using them in the ritualistic, ceremonial aspect that they kind of were used for in the past. Like, when people use these things in certain ceremonies, such as the Eleusinian mysteries and things such as that, they approached him with the utmost reverence and respect for what it was. And it wasn't like they went to a rave or a concert or, went to a party on him. It was like this actual, like a rite of passage that they respected. And it was this whole plan that they went through. And I think that is an important aspect that we need to kind of bring back to it. Like, we don't need to be, we might not necessarily need to pray to Dionysus, but we also need the same, like, kind of comfortable setting, like where you want to get out of it. Like, you need the same kind of guidance, I guess you could say. Very important. I understand. That's definitely going to be a huge thing in the future too, once these things are legalized, and once it's actually, people realize how powerful they are. There's going to be many other people like you, maybe even me. I don't know. Maybe there will be, maybe it'll just be like an online type of thing. Like, do you have in-person clients, or is it mainly like online where you tell people?
Mostly online at the moment, because as you know, some countries are strictly, illegal, and substances are illegal.
Yeah.
But right now there are so many apps are being developed. One of them is the Fireside Project. They are creating an app where people can, anywhere in the world, countries, like so many countries, these substances are decriminalized, so they can actually access them now. So they can literally tune into these apps and get the support, tell them that you're going in, so they're not alone. Because the issue in the West that we are having right now, because it dropped in the 50s, these substances dropped in the 50s when the population weren't ready. They didn't know what this was. People didn't understand how powerful. I mean, they didn't in a way. And those who did, they started creating movements. They started building and constructing these movements, then turned into this whole, the movement of the 60s. But I think what the real struggle in the West is because of one of the reasons it became, because it wasn't illegal. Remember, when the LSD was found, late 40s, it wasn't really illegal. It was given to people. Like, you can literally email them or mail them, and they'll send you a whole bottle of LSD and so on. Like someone like Dr. Stan Grof, he's now has over 5,000 sessions under his belt, where he was sitting. Yeah, he's like the psychotherapist, clinical psychotherapist. He used to use LSD for therapy, and himself, he explored the space himself. But the issue is people weren't ready how big and important and powerful these substances were. So that's one of the fear. When we don't know how to deal with such thing, what do? You shut it down, you illegalize it, right? But now, yeah, exactly. That's because, again, I tie it down to the industrialization, where we've moved so far away from the rituals, the rites of passages, community living. Because in the West, as you know, it is very much promoted to be an individual. Look at the Instagram accounts. It's very much focused on individualism and the selfies. And so all of these, like you said earlier, like they are kind of moving us away from the community-centric aspect of our humanness, which is the innate wiring that we need to be with people.
Yeah, but the right people.
Yeah. So now what do? We are so driven away from each other. And then now we have these substances doing the opposite, because in its essence, the plant medicines or the psychedelic substances, they bring us closer.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Connection.
So what do we do? Yeah. So what do? We need to start creating a westernized version of communities. Like, we also need to leave the indigenous people alone and respect them, show them some respect. Like, the dilemma that I am observing in the psychedelic space is that because we just, it's like the way the psychedelic substances are used in the West is like a child, like like often, like people don't know what to do with this thing. Some people go deep into the process. They go to the jungle and they come back wearing indigenous clothes and crystals and feathers in their hair, and they look all spiritual. And then we have these, like you said, folks who are using them in nightclubs and just completely recreational. But what does a single mom in a city in a Western country do with these psychedelic medicines? She can't be wearing crystals, feathers, and all that, the indigenous clothes. And this is not the way. And because also there's a miscommunication that this is how we respect the medicine. No, we do not show respect to medicine by dressing up like indigenous people, or at least learning their rituals and then bringing it to our communities in the West, because it's just too alien to those people in the West. So, and then you have, like you said, the youngsters and the other folks who are completely immersed in the recreational. They create more and more stigma. If you look at, like, there's so much negativity, so much stigma around. Like, it's almost like we have these substances. What do we do with them? What do we do with them now in the West?
So create systems with
right,
them.
Exactly. So we are far into the future. We are so far into these industrialized versions of ourselves that with the exponential growth with the technology, we're not going back. We're going to go forward even more. Maybe soon the technology will be so much different and fast. God knows how we're going. Like, I can just imagine chips becoming a very common thing. So we're not really going back. We're going forward with technology. What does that mean when it comes to psychedelics? So that means we need to bring these substances into the Western life and create our own Western cultures and respectful way of using these medicines, right?
I think we are slowly. This is just the growing pains.
Exactly. That's the intention. Because we want, like I said, there's single moms in the city who's juggling so many things and they might need microdosing. There are a lot of people having 2 jobs under pressure. They might need microdosing. I'm not even going to touch the mental health space. That's a whole nother monster. A lot of people suffering with mental illnesses and issues and complications and disorders, right? So,
I think we just need to change the laws.
Yeah. Well, yes, there's a lot of work to be done. I think firstly, education is must. We really need to understand what they are. Because as much as they are super helpful, they are our allies and it's going to help transform everybody. However, there's also a risk that the transformation very much depends on the person.
Yeah, right. It's like you can only do so much.
Yeah.
You can only facilitate like a good environment for these people, I guess, a good knowledge, information about it. But when it really comes down to it, it is up to the person to use them in the way that they're supposed to be used. It comes down to all of us. Like, it's our own journey through the mind. Like, there's nobody else that can really do it for you, you know? It has to be. It has to be. There's no other way. So the only thing we can do is create, I guess, a framework for that to happen going forward.
And it might be many different frameworks. It might be, we might need a framework for the mental health space, for those that are really suffering much deeper, situations. They're much, much more in detrimental situations. And then we might have to have a framework for those who just want to use it for wellness, for optimizing their health. And that should be okay. And we might have to have a framework with harm reduction where people just want to have a good time with them. And that should be okay. Why do we need to stigmatize? It doesn't need to be just for mental health, which that could be an amazing outlet to start doing the work and slowly legalizing them in the way that it needs to be done, which is fine. But eventually it should be available to everyone. It should be a free choice and it should be well educated and, you know, well informed. People can take well informed decisions and have that choice as well. Yeah.
Beautiful. I couldn't agree anymore. I think we're getting there.
Mm.
Slowly but surely, we're getting there. It's just like we said, it's a weird time to be alive. This is the transitionary period between like living in the dark ages in a way, and then actually, I guess, enlightening ourselves to work with these things that have been with us for, you know, it's like we lost touch with this essence of the mind, I guess, or being able to work in this holistic path. Like we were always connected with this thousands of years ago, and we lost track of it. And, you know, maybe it was deliberate, maybe it wasn't. Whatever you think of it, whatever conspiracy you think of why we lost track of it, like we're living in this kind of amnesia state. Either way, we know that we're in this amnesia state, and we have to kind of recognize that firstly and say, oh, I've kind of been lied to my whole life. And you recognize that. That's the first step. And then second of all, you realize, okay, well, then it's time for me to make the change. And these substances are what allow us to make that change very effectively if used correctly. It can change. It's literally, these things quite literally change our like how our brain is wired. And that's kind of what we need to do. Like you can take time, it takes, you can do that on the reg 100%. You can do that with yoga and meditation. If anything, it's good to do that with medicine. So you can do this, all this stuff on the reg, and change your brain, and deprogram yourself from how we've been programmed our whole life. You can. But if you want to and use it correctly, you can associate yourself with these plant medicines, incorporate it into your practice, and it will allow you to change and grow in ways that you couldn't even fathom. And that's kind of what we need right now, like a really big wake-up call collectively. Like we all need to get on that wavelength of the psychedelic, psychedelic healing, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain kind of wavelength that, even though there's all these different substances and practices such as yoga, meditation, mushrooms, ayahuasca, psilocybin, LSD, mescaline, the list goes on. All of these are different chemicals and different practices, but they're all touching upon the same wavelength, the same kind of frequency, which is, you know, essentially getting down to it, it's love, and loving yourself, loving the world, sense of connection. But also tied into that is a sense of growing. It's more than just the experience of that. It's like you take what you learned from that loving spirit, whatever you want to call it, and then you can grow and heal and truly become the person you're supposed to be here on this earth, in this incarnation. Like you gain like a sense of purpose from that. At least for me, I'm speaking from my personal experience. I don't like, everybody's different, but I do notice some kind of correlation between people's experiences in these substances, of like a sense of connectivity between others, the world, this universe, a sense of, from that connectivity, wanting to be selfless and wanting to give back in a way, and kind of almost like a sense of like sacrificing yourself for the betterment of the community, which is essentially, you realize, is yourself. You know, you realize the connection between you and that community. Like there's a sense of do this holistic healing. It brings you, it's more than just like doing the practice and taking the substance. It brings you to a totally new sense of living, a new way of living, a new state of consciousness that I think that we can evolve into and adopt as the new paradigm, like literally living out our humanly dharma, some would say, like our true purpose for being here on this earth. It's more than just like, I mean, it's part of it. It's more than just healing your anxiety and depression and, you know, these ailments. That's 100% part of it, because with these realizations and this connectivity comes that sense of, well, from, you heal yourself because you realize those insecurities, I guess you could say, that you thought were giving you these ailments such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, certain trauma, whatever it is. You kind of come to a realization that those weren't important per se, or there's a bigger reason to exist. You know, it's kind of like switching the perspective up on what it really means to be a human. And it'll show you things inside yourself and allow you to confront things inside yourself that you realize, like, oh, that's not really the purpose. Like, I was holding that in such high regard, when what's really important is you know, living to your fullest extent, growing, healing, and then giving back. Like, there's a certain sense of giving back in that. And when you reach that sense of kind of like self-sacrifice in a way from the idea of self-sacrifice or giving back in whatever way, it's different for everybody. Whatever that idea of creativity, I guess you could say, creating a better world, then you kind of like the petty, I guess it's not petty, but I guess these things of the mind that you thought were important seem petty in retrospect. Like with that new paradigm, I'm talking from personal experience. With my new paradigm and way of seeing the world from all these practices and, you know, these substances, it puts me on the paradigm of not attaching myself to, I guess you could say, the material world. I know that there's like a greater purpose, you know, and I think I've talked to many other people that are on that same wavelength. Like, we realize that the things we thought were important, you know, like our image, what people think of us, our followers on Instagram, just the noise of on the internet, you know, that you can get lost in, and other things such as that, they're not really important in the scheme of things. In the scheme of things, we're all kind of meant to be here and serve each other. A lot of that, it comes down to an act of service that I think we all like assign ourselves to after we come to that new paradigm shift, you know. And I'm always interested in people's catalyst in that. Like, how did they switch? Like, I think there's always like some kind of switch where you see life in a totally new light, but it's a totally new light that you can't really let go. And it's usually, a lot of times, it's from psychedelics, right? But not all the time. Sometimes it's from trauma. Sometimes it just happens. Like, I don't know, some people just, something happens one day and they just realize that the connectiveness of everything. So what was yours? Do you have any kind of special event that allowed you to, like, oh, wait a second, I'm like, I should live a little bit differently? Or do you think it was like a series of events? Like, do you think it's like a continual growth? Because I can remember one experience that I've had that was very transcendent, and I've never forgot about it. It taught me a lot. I've had many, but there was one in particular that kind of changed my viewpoint very drastically, and I haven't looked back since.
I love that. Wow, super powerful share. Thank you so much for that.
That was a
So,
rant. Sorry.
no, it's super powerful.
Thank you.
I think it's a process. I always think that we all have the capacity to have that shift at some point, and all of us come to it in different ways. Some could be like a diagnosis of terminal illness, or accident, loss of somebody that means to them, family member. I think that shift happens when we are confronted with our own mortality, or that facing death. I think facing death in many cases, like people who diagnosed with cancer, I always mention this as well on my podcast series, that everyone I spoke to who were diagnosed with cancer and they overcame or healed from it, they always say it was the best thing that ever happened to them. So I find that really fascinating. So I think there is a power in facing our own death, our own end.
Yeah.
Confronting our mortality is like where we crack open, and we know we will never go back to the same again. We will never be the same again. The life we know of changes overnight.
Yeah, that's powerful. I think that's the experience. Yeah, that's the big one. That's the biggest one. When you
Yeah.
can confront your own mortality, it's like you look at it in a different way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is induced by events that kind of like brew and brew and brew, and it comes to a point where it's so big and huge. It's like earthquake, mountains are moved. Everything
Yeah.
is just slipping away. There's nothing nothing that you can hold on to, but just surrender and confront what you need to confront. Go through the fear. I call that crossing the river, as Joe Dispenza says it all the time. But it's like an initiation. It's a rite of passage. Although it feels like confronting your death or your end, or, it's actually, or it could be excruciating pain that you are feeling at that moment. It could be a rejection, because humans, we're wired for connection. Most people go through this when they are rejected by their partner. A lot of people who go through some messy divorce, they also go through the same cracking open experience where they never see the filters. They come crashing down. They look at the world very differently after that. They look at relationships very differently after that. And but it has to happen. And that cracking open moment needs to happen for us to have that big shift. But we all have different timelines. So one of my biggest questions was like, why some people have that shift and some don't? Some people never have it through their lives, and they can literally go to grave by not having this cracking open moment. And they just go through the motions of the three-dimensional life, the physical life. And that's the life that they know. But we don't know. We can never know why and how this has happened. But all I know that I've been observing a lot of people and working with a lot of people, that moment happens to people at different ages, different times in their life. So there's not even one, none of us are the same, as you know. It's all individual, unique process. And that shift, sometimes it doesn't come like a big bang. It could be like a small little things and subtle, and suddenly you wake up one morning, you're like, oh, I'm feeling very different today. You start to do things differently. So it can come like that as well, very subtle and incremental. But most of us, we have to go through it with like this excruciating pain, suffering, confrontation, and then shift.
Yeah, totally. I still feel like I go through that sometimes, pretty regularly. Go through these mini rebirth experiences, I guess you could say. But yeah, the big one is 100%. It's like when you actually can confront that, because that's what's in the back of all of our heads, right? I guess that's everybody's biggest fear deep down, is most likely our own perishment. But when that's the most beautiful thing. I could see how it can appear to be scary to people, obviously, to confront it through these medicines. But when you actually do, you gain a sense of liberation. You gain a sense of like, and in that liberation is peace. Like, that you gain a sense of peace, a sense of like, surrender is big, because you surrender to the process. You realize that it's out of our control. We're all going to do it anyway. So the act of actually surrendering is powerful, because if you can surrender to that, which is inevitable at the end of our life, you can surrender to whatever happens in your life, the process between, the thing that's actually happening right now. And it's a beautiful thing, because from that, it's just like kind of go with the flow type of attitude. It's like you go with, doesn't mean you're just gonna sit on the couch all day and eat Doritos, go with the flow. It's like go with the flow of the universe, of creativity, like the flow of the vibe, I guess you could say, or the dharma. It's like there is this like frequency that you tap into once you kind of surrender, and you realize that there is a plan. I like to say, like, there's some kind of plan going on, and you could play it. You could go according to the plan, which would be a lot smoother if you did, because we all have our own say in this plan. We all have our own way to act in this plan. Or you could try to create your own plan, which isn't gonna probably go so well. So you can either surrender to the greater plan, or you can kind of try and do your own thing, which is ultimately gonna lead to suffering. So I know which way I'm gonna go. But most people don't even know that that's a thing, that you can tap into the Tao, the way. Like, there is this way to live where it's just like you don't have to, suffering is optional at some point, because it's all depends on how you look at it. It's all perspective. Like with that, seeing it, that there is a plan that's from your ultimate perspective of life, that, oh, there is some kind of this isn't all just chaos and like random events. It's kind of like a sense of like placement. Like, oh, okay, this is all happening for a reason. Even the bad parts in your life and and things happening around you and in the world, it's all perfectly imperfect once you see that this is part of the plan. So you can either surrender to the plan, or you can still go against the grain if you want. I know what I'm choosing, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
because it just makes it easier when you realize that this life is it's like, I guess it's going according to plan. But most
Yeah.
people's, not judging here, I'm just stating an observation. Most people's idea of the world is not according to the divine plan. It's trying to it's according to the egoistic plan, like some kind of um structure of our world where we just want to comfort ourselves in a way, very temporarily. Like we want to comfort ourselves through our sensual pleasures, through validation, and just things, low level things such as that, which is that's all part of it. It's okay, like we have to recognize that. But once you just think that that's all reality, that there is no plan, like I'm just here for me, and I'm just here just to survive and feel good and reproduce, like, no, it's a little bit more important than that. Like there's a little more things going on in the world. And yeah,
Yeah.
if you can surrender to the idea of that, the idea of there's more going on, there's a greater purpose, I guess, to why I'm here, and figure that out for yourself, it's all good. It's all
Mm-hmm.
good, baby.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I
all good.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, like, one of the theories that I'd like to believe and or accept is that um, when, like, I, observe also many people complaining about others, why other people are not learning. And, you've probably been there yourself. When we start
Hmm.
our journey, we want to help everybody. You want to tell every single family member what you've seen, what you've learned, what you've experienced. And you want them, I'm sure so many listeners can resonate with this. I remember beginning of my journey, I used to bombard all of my family members with links,
Yeah,
lectures, video links, research papers. Read this, learn this, learn it. This is it. This is going to change your life.
it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, so that needs to go. But if you think about it, we don't need to do any of that. And if that could be just a distraction of us not wanting to do our own work. So when we continually focus on the outer world, which means it's helping us distract ourselves from our own inner world.
Hmm.
So
It's another trap.
exactly. So when we too familiarize ourselves with environment, people, things that don't go right, the things that should be this way and that way, there is some serious control issues that we all have, every
Hmm.
single one of us. Even those who say I don't have control issues, yes, we do, because we are wired for certainty. Uncertainty freaks the hell out of us. And this is why the COVID has been super confrontational, because the uncertainty is just like the deepest fear. So we do have control issues. We are creatures of comfort. We want to know what's going to happen 6 months time. I remember, like, a long time ago, before I started this path of healing arts, I had friends who would book their summer holidays next year and the year after, like 2 years in advance. And I'm like, oh, and that was a norm, right? Because we accepted that this is the norm. This is what you do. Like, for some reason, we think that we can know and be control of the next 6 months, next year, your following year.
Hmm.
Now, after going through so many processes of these, circles and cycles, like you said, deaths and rebirths, so this path, you realize that, oh my God, there is no point even planning tomorrow, in the sense that we've been taught, like, in the sense that we've been taught so intense. Everything is so intense in our lives. we have apps that control everything. We write everything down. There's checklist. Gosh, checklist after checklist. So if you was to say to me, what did you learn? What is the one single biggest takeaway of your psychedelic path or the process from my own personal journey would be, right now, currently, I'm literally incapable of planning anything tomorrow, the next day, even the next moment. I feel like I am
Living in the moment.
developing this capacity to be more here right now, but not ignoring tomorrow, 6 months, and the next year, but having ideas, but they don't define me anymore. They don't control my current state right now.
Yeah. It's like not being attached to the outcome, essentially. Not being attached to if things switch up a little bit, if we just so happen to do another pandemic or something, then that's all right. It's just that's just how it goes. I know what you mean, because we get so go ahead.
Yeah, and how many people do you know, just because they couldn't have their summer holidays due to flights, due to restrictions, they've literally lost it, like they've gone so depressed. It's why is it that what happens if you just skip one summer holiday and you won't do that? What does that do? It confronts the entire familiar comfort, the certainty that they are used to. So what happens if you just miss one summer holiday? What's the worst can happen? Nothing. But it's not that, is it? It's not about the holiday. It's not about that. It's about continuing with the norm, what they have been taught and learned, and the conditioning, the certainty, the feeling of the sense of control that they have.
Because we're creatures of habit. So through our habits, we create this illusion of control. I guess that's just like the game that we have to play. But through these practices and medicines, it allows us to create new habits for ourselves. If you want to use it, you can. And that's kind of what I use it for, is because that's how we change, is we create different ways of literally wiring our brain. And then different from that, we have different viewpoints of how our reality is set up, essentially. So if we've been continually conditioned our whole life into that state of planning and having some kind of plan, which we kind of were, like the regimented schedules of schooling, Monday through Friday schedule, and we've been conditioned in that way our whole life to make sure you have some kind of plan for yourself and some kind of achievement, like a mark where you have to get to, like a place where you have to get to, a time, to make it so you have some kind of like almost like regimented life in a way. That's kind of like the habit forming mind that we've been conditioned into. So it's our job to decondition yourself from that. A lot easier said than done, obviously, because that's just how a part of how we're also built. Like humans like to have that sense of like, this is how it's gonna be. This is how the world is, when really it's kind of not really like that. Everything's out of control, even though there is. So it's hard to explain, because there is a sense of plan, like I talked about. There is a sense of control, but it's not related to how our systems are built up. Like that control and that plan, the divine plan that I believe in, I guess you could say, is not related to how our lives are set up in terms of how we plan and how we've been conditioned to plan for our lives. It's more the essence of living in the moment, per se, is actually, that's more associated with how this world works. You become more in tune. It actually will probably make your life better planned out when you kind of stop trying to come to some kind of outcome, or think that your life is going to be here in 6 weeks, and you don't attach yourself if that doesn't happen. Because I don't think it also means, to me, it doesn't mean I don't have plans. Like, I still obviously plan for my day, and I have a schedule. Like, we had a schedule to set this thing up, right? We planned this up. So it's not that you don't plan your life out. It's just kind of like, well, if this didn't happen, then I wouldn't be distraught, I guess. Or if X didn't happen, or if I didn't get X at a certain point in time, it's whatever. I'm still going with the flow. I'm still alive. I'm here. It's kind of like, it's the sense, it's the Buddhism 101. It's like not attaching yourself to
Yeah.
any kind of outcome. And that's the gist of it. That's how you also surrender to the process, because we live in an unknown world. Like nobody saw this past year, year and a half coming prior to the pandemic. Nobody saw what was going to happen. So because of that, a lot of people suffered. But me personally, I'm just like, nah, you don't, like, the world's crazy. Like you never know what can happen. So when this stuff was happening, I was like, we should have saw this coming, I guess. I don't know. Like, it definitely threw me a curveball. What I'm trying to say, though, if you have the mindset of there's a greater plan going on and the lies that we've been conditioned into and living in, it kind of makes sense that, tomorrow, I don't want to say it, but maybe an asteroid can come down, or there could be a solar flare, or, something could happen. There could be some crazy tornadoes, but we're out of control in the human way, in the egotistical way. But if you follow the control of the universe, Gaia, the world, you realize that there is way more going on behind the scenes, I guess you could say, to the stage that we're in here in this reality. And from that, I'm just living in the moment at this point. I'm just kind of trying to survive day to day, but it makes me happier.
Yeah, but you are living in a moment because nobody sees the process that you had to go through.
Yeah.
Like they don't know what Gary had to go through. What did that process look like for Gary to be sitting here and chilling and having that flexibility and fluidity?
Yeah, it was a little messy.
One thing that a lot of people don't talk about in the self-development or the transformational spaces, like healing arts, let's call it, is the capacity. One of my favorite subjects to talk about is the capacity. And this is a very super powerful concept to realize from a human perspective. It's easy to be all spiritual and woo-woo and just talk about the dimensions and other realities and energetic stuff. But ultimately, we are human beings in this three-dimensional world. The reality that we're perceiving, made of bones, skin, and blood. It is what it is. Yes, there is other things beyond the veil, but right now, what's happening in front of my nose? I am human. I'm limited. I have limitations. I have human limitations where I need to be in this physical body until my time is up. That means, I can read as many books. I can go to all workshops. This includes psychedelic experiences, by the way. I can be drinking 100 cups of ayahuasca, but nothing will move. Nothing will change. Nothing will transform. It will be temporary. It will be for the moment. Why? Because of the capacity. We, as human perspective, from a human perspective, we need to build the resiliency. Capacity is just the emotional resiliency. We need to build that inner capacity in order to be flexible. I know so many people who go into like you said, distraught and craziness just because they miss their morning coffee.
Yeah.
Let alone missing something bigger and greater. They sweat the smallest things. Why is that? Because it all comes down to our inner capacity. And when people take psychedelics, one of the things I always bring it to attention and always repeatedly reinforce it until it becomes so obvious to them. Until you build that inner capacity, you can be sitting in any ceremony, nothing is going to change in your life. So you might say, okay, how do we build that inner capacity? We don't build that inner capacity in the psychedelic ceremonies, unfortunately. We go into the psychedelic space. We explore and go into that expansion where we receive the benefits of new neural pathways and connections that are happening, or not just the brain, by the way. There's 3 brains in our bodies. There's the mind, there is the heart brain, and the gut brain. So when somebody takes psychedelics, they don't just improve the cognition and neural pathway. They actually go through the whole system reset. But what happens is that when they come out of the ceremony or the experience, they go back into their environment, which is the norm, which is their common reality, where they, always so familiar with. So what do? Now that you experience the expansion, now you've seen and received some messages and benefits, you need to go back in your three-dimensional world. This is where rubber hits the road. Now you came home, right? What is the next thing you need to do? Have that difficult conversation with that person that you've been avoiding. Stop that addiction, or at least become super aware of. Direct confront it. I always say, if you have an addiction, there is no weaning off. There is no, let me just do a cheat day on that day, I'll have it. Or if you have a sugar, like, for example, let's give a simple example. If you have a sugar addiction, direct confront it, cut cold turkey. And then, yes, the anxiety will come, the cravings, and sit in that. What is it? What is it? Why did you build such a codependency? What is it? That if you don't have that, what happens to your body? Observe it. Anxiety levels go up, trembling, shivering, shakes. Just sit in it. That's a direct confrontation. Again, there's someone in your life that triggers you. Have that difficult conversation. Let them know. So this is how we build the inner capacity, by taking action in the three-dimensional world. Take care of this, and the higher dimensions and the higher spirituality will take care of itself. If we don't have this inner capacity, we will not be able to change anything. It will just be talk. It will not direct reflection, but it will never be the direct reflection of our lives. So sometimes, like, you probably meet a lot of people who know so much about esoteric philosophies, concepts. My goodness, so educated. They intellectualize everything. They intellectually know so much. They have so much wisdom, knowledge, but it never reflects into their direct physical life. They have the most chaotic life most of the time. And that's because knowing is not doing, and you really need to build inner capacity. And this is where the body wisdom of the body comes, the heart wisdom, the gut wisdom. They carry the same cells as our brain. That's why they are the heart brain and the gut brain, right? So you tap into your somatic wisdom. This is the body's wisdom. And you go through each step, each one by one. What is it holding you back? For example, one of the simplest examples, say somebody wants to launch their podcast, right? But they're so nervous. There's this fear. And they intellectualize it. They say, oh my God, there's so much fear. No, I can't do it. I will be so scared, afraid. I'll be so anxious and nervous, right? Okay, let's explore that. Why don't you launch your podcast and then post your first episode? If it's a solo, maybe you just want to have a conversation with your friend to make it easy on your first. And then while you're going through the motions of recording your conversation, why don't you pay attention to your body? Where is that nervousness coming from? Is it from your gut? Is it from your heart? What part of your body? Is it your throat? You can't speak. The words are not coming out. Are you feeling hot? Are you feeling anxious? Are you trembling? Like, what are those things? The somatic experiences that you're going through.
Yeah.
Super aware of it. Observe it. Don't do anything. Don't change it. Don't jump in the cold shower and try and change your state. Don't do that.
Just observe it. Yeah.
Be with it. Observe it. And then do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Promise you, by your 10th conversation, all of the somatic experiences will transmute, and you will declutter the junk that you've been holding on in your cells, this tension and this intensity, and then eventually it will become easier.
Yeah,
I'm not saying they will go away. They always will be there, but your relationship with it will change. And that's how we know that we are building inner capacity.
Do you think we all have that capacity as a human being?
Every single one of us have it. That's why a lot of people in the healing arts, they never change, never heal. Like you meet people who's been taking ayahuasca for 10 years, nothing has changed. They still go and date dysfunctional, they find themselves in dysfunctional relationships. And sometimes they say, this is my learning. Like, this is a divine plan. Yeah, but how many years can you do this though? That sounds like a bypassing, doesn't it? Kind of justifying. There is another scary thing about the spirituality and healing in the healing arts. Sometimes when we don't have the inner capacity, we tend to bypass. We tend to give a meaning, like a spiritual meaning, why these chaotic things are still happening in your life, because we must justify it, right? We must justify it. But this is a toxic spirituality.
Yeah, that's unfortunately a thing. It's another trap. If you get too trapped into the woo-woo of it, I guess you could say, the story of spirituality, it's like it's becoming its own cult. People are losing, I guess you could say, we have the capacity to also go the other way, where you lose the real purpose of what this whole headspace is about, and it becomes like an egotistical thing, that's very easy. I could see that. I could see definitely getting trapped in that idea, for sure. Especially if like I'm just doing this for fun personally. Like, this is just me having good conversations with good people. So I don't really care if people watch it or not. But if it's tied to your identity, like what you think people think you are, and it's tied to especially your income, you could definitely shine I don't want to say negative, but just a different light on this whole holistic healing aspect for your own good. And that's not necessarily, I'm not necessarily saying that's bad, but it could end up bad. Like, if you approach these things with a inauthentic, ingenuine, like, you know what I'm trying to say, like a way of, if you're just trying to survive by making videos or making some kind of art from the psychedelic space, you might put out stuff that necessarily isn't associated with the correct way to do it. You know, it could just be almost like another crutch, you know, that's not necessarily the way to go about it. I think the way we're talking about now is the way to go about it. It's not really, I don't know, you approach it like, yeah, I mean, the spirituality aspect is obviously huge. When you go into these experiences, you have mystical experiences, but it's like we're still here in this 3D realm, in this body. We still have something to do here. So it's like, yeah, we don't get lost and caught up in that realm, because that realm, it's probably going to come a little bit later in life. I mean, like when we die, maybe after we die, maybe that's when we'll have all the time to explore those realms, you know? Until then, we're here now, and just use those experiences as a message to better facilitate this realm that we're in. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, how many times do you really got to do ayahuasca or any other substance too? I realized that with mushrooms, because I do mushrooms a lot. Well, I don't. I used to, and then I realized, I was like, man, how many times do I got to do this? How many times do I really have to go through this? Like, I realized that it's some kind of like, there's only so many times you can get the same message. So from that, I realized it's not about. It is cool. I mean, obviously, everyone loves the visions and the feelings and the ecstatic states of connection that you get into with these substances, but you can get that without the substances and without the whole narrative that you tell yourself about these things, and telling yourself that you're the Messiah or something. It's more than that. It's like, use these things, like I said, as a tool. Appreciate the experience that you had, and don't even get too attached to those. So even though it's very tough, like, because you can go through some amazing experiences on these substances, like absolutely transcending, to say the least. And if you get attached to that, that's probably the biggest trap You just gotta leave it in the past in a way. Take it, and then you keep going. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, kind of thing.
Exactly.
But that's a whole other aspect, man. Getting on the idea of like fake spirituality. I like you said, toxic spirituality. That's definitely a thing too. And it's when you tie your ego in a little bit too much with these spiritual ideas, and you suck other people into this idea. Like you get a lot of people living under the lie of how you see your own idea of spirituality, when it's not really. It might be totally different from other people, but when you're selling this to others, literally selling this, if it's your living, it can be a dangerous thing. And there's probably a lot of people that have gotten into some I guess maybe bad trips or unsuspecting trips from people that are promoting a sense of toxic spirituality, and it would have been avoided if it was talked about in an educated and I guess thoughtful manner, with the capacity. Like you said, I like the idea of like the capacity, just giving people the space to have that capacity is the most important aspect of it, I think.
Exactly. I love those insights that you're sharing. So profound. So just want to quickly tie it all back to why is that? Lately, almost all of my episodes on my Psychedelic Conversations have become around this toxic spirituality. There are a few terms that I'm going to share with you. They're quite hilarious. There is another one, psychedelic narcissism. There is another one, psychedelic shopping, where people just like you shop, meaning it's like how we are such a huge consumers in the West. When we go to the mall, what do? We buy everything, right? When people come to psychedelic space without that full awareness and education, understanding about these substances, they start using cocktails of psychedelics.
Oh, wow.
Continually. Like there are people, they get buzz just trying different psychedelics just because they want to see what they are like. And psychedelics are not that. They are not those. You can't do that. This is not Walmart. You're going and just picking up stuff from the shelf. It's not. You cannot do that. This is the most detrimental thing you can do for yourself, psychologically, physically, spiritually. So, and the reason that I always tie again to human perspective. So one of the things that I love talking about in our group microdosing processes, I am continually in favor of bringing people down, because we have now built this toxic spirituality where everybody wants to be in the 5 dimension. Everybody wants to talk to the angels. Even like in psychedelic space, people just want to communicate with these other worldly beings. And, some people call it the God and, all this source and everything. So I feel like my job is to bring people down. Okay, that's lovely. That's like beautiful. Yes, that's great. I'm so happy that you can experience and fly and be this cosmic being, but let's bring you down. Let's bring you down and let's see what's in your basement. What is it? What is it that you're hiding in your basement? Is there like I said earlier, is there a difficult conversation that must take place? You're not doing it and you're avoiding it. Is it finances? Are you stuck? You're not taking responsibility of creating a good income for yourself. So there is a lack of self-worthiness somewhere, that you don't create that income that you need to survive as a human being, because you need to eat, right? You need to eat. So this shouldn't be a taboo. This shouldn't be a stigma. What is the relationship with money? What is your relationship with money? Let's talk about that. What is your, all of these things like self-deception. Do you understand the concept of self-deception? Do you understand your blind spots? Because see, this human body comes with an algorithmic mechanism. We call it unconscious. Some people call it subconscious. So we are here with this. There is this algorithmic. I call it algorithmic because It's an intelligence phenomena that unless you build inner capacity within yourself and turn inside into your own world and grow in self-awareness, you can be sitting in Peru every weekend or live there in Costa Rica and Bali and wearing all these crystals and feathers, do whatever you want, but you will never be able to know who you are, what you stand for. Experience this life as you meant to experience here in this physical dimension. We're here to experience this difficult thing that a lot of people trying to escape from. Do you know how many people I meet in psychedelic space, they're trying to escape their body? Like, why the hurry? It's going to end one day. You're going to close your eyes, be buried underground. Like, why the hurry? Let's explore. Why do you want to escape that? Why do you want to escape this body? Why don't you accept it? What is it in your basement that you haven't touched on? Is it scary? Is it messy? Let's go down there, because I always say you forget the 5D, you know. You must go down in the dirt into your basement, get muddy, messy, sit in that pain and suffering, and then you can ascend. There's no ascension before descending into that mess. So yeah, I always like, instead of, you know, talking about the benefits and this amazing great stuff about psychedelics, that's not my job, because we have amazing like Dr. James Fadiman, Dennis McKenna. We have these amazing people like Michael Pollan. Oh my God, he's doing incredible work in the space of the science, the benefits, how it's changing the mind, the chemically, biochemicals, how they are reacting to psychedelics. That's not my job, because we have, like I said, amazing leaders for that role. My job here is, if you decide to work with me, I will make sure I'll take your hand. If anything, I'll force you to go down into your basement. Let's clear out the junk.
Wow.
That's what's important right now. That's what's important. That's what's going to help you move forward with your life. That's it. Simple as that. It's quite simple, actually. And we talk about all these concepts about, you know, psychedelic shopping and narcissism, toxic spirituality. All of these are part of our shadow, the unconscious algorithm that we try, because it's too painful, right? It's too painful to confront those. And we carry these, like, you know, I call it like we're in our own bubble. This self-deception is real.
Yeah.
So, for example, I can see your blind spots, but you cannot. This is the algorithm here.
Right now?
Not like, just give an example. Like,
oh,
and
okay.
you probably can do the same for me. So humans, we are interesting creatures that we can meet somebody and we can pick up on the things that they have. I call it self-deception or blind spots, whatever. The work that they are avoiding, basically.
Yeah, that's a superpower.
Right? But the person cannot, like I can do that for others, but I probably cannot do it for myself. That's why I always love group processes. When a group of like-minded people come together in authenticity, you know, practicing vulnerability and really like intentionally going into their truth, some magical process comes alive.
That's something special.
Yeah.
That's how these things are supposed to be used. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it doesn't matter how much we work on our own, alone, like a solo journey. In the beginning of our journey, before we humble up, before we build that inner capacity, we need others. And I want to just quickly touch on something you said earlier. You said when you begin taking psychedelics, you realize it's not just about that anxiety, the depression. It's a bigger picture. There is a bigger picture. However, we won't be able to see that bigger picture until we take care of the mess in the physical dimension and build that inner capacity. That's why you can talk like that and you can feel it in your bones, because you've done the work. You've done the work. People who have gone through the process, been there, and really gone through the process in that really suffering and being with it and facing and confronting, they feel it in their bones that it's not about their childhood trauma, that their mums abandoned them or that dads did this and the family members did that. They don't care anymore. It just means nothing anymore. It's just a narrative. Yep. That they are completely emotionally detached. They're no longer charged emotionally to that story. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But psychedelic exploration, let's call it, it kind of has its level. So when people come into it first, the work begins with that exactly. Oh, poor me, the victim me. Oh my God, everybody's out there to get me. Oh my God, everybody was like, they were hurting me and they were doing this and that. And poor me. I've gone through so much pain, right? And then slowly, as we build that capacity, we move into the next phase, which is like, oh, actually, my parents didn't know anything better. Those people who hurt me, they are also in the conditioning. They also didn't do it intentionally.
Yeah.
And there is a sense of relief and there's a little bit more letting go. And then you go through the next phase. You're like, I'm totally detached. There is a bigger picture out there. And then as you go through these phases, you become this cosmic, more of like a cosmic, there is this cosmic understanding of oh my God, I'm so tiny little speck in this big picture. Wow, what was I thinking? Thinking that the world revolves around me. It's just me.
Yeah.
That just kind of goes away and dissolves after a while.
Yeah, that's liberation. Letting go of the victim mentality, that's huge. We all have been conditioned almost into that victim mentality.
Yeah, because we have the tendency, like I said to you, the algorithmic unconscious dynamic within us.
That's good. The algorithmic unconscious dynamic.
That's why it's easy to condition humans, because we have the foundation, the tendency already. It's there, it's built in. That's why it's easy. You know, a lot of people say like, oh, why do you take all this rubbish? Why do you get conditioned by your parents? Well, this is because it's not like but it's not by choice until we become self-aware. It is not a choice. You come with this software. How can you know? How can you stop the conditioning? How can you tell an 8-year-old child, don't be conditioned, all right? Don't do what we say.
Yeah.
Don't believe in everything we say. We are just messed up, traumatized. Imagine like your child, they don't look at you and think, oh, my mom carries a transgenerational trauma and this is what she does and she gets triggered. And actually, this is not personal. I shouldn't take anything she says personal. 8-year-old can't do that. They haven't developed that frontal abstract brain just yet that allows the self-awareness, the inner capacity that comes later on.
Yeah.
That's why we have these tendencies for conditioning. It's easy.
Yeah, it's just part of our biology to be conditioned in one way or the other. You just have to make sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there is a way, even though you can't tell kids that specifically, I think there is a way to guide them into that lifestyle. I think the way that we're raised is so far disconnected from source. But I think there is a way to truly raise the next generation, which I think is what we're going to have to do, is raise the next generation into kind of that mindset. Doesn't mean you give them mushrooms at a young age, or like you tell them things such as past emotional trauma from their parents and stuff like that. It's just kind of allow them, I guess, maybe to be curious, but also structure them into a I don't know. I'm not a father, so I don't really know. I'll find out. But just structure them into that, being able to ask those questions like we're asking now, or just being able to, I guess, not get sucked into the narrative. You know, it's easier said than done, obviously, because we go to these schools where they put a narrative onto these kids. You know, like quite literally, there is some narrative sold to these kids Monday through Friday. So I think it's our job as conscious individuals raising the next generation to be able to allow the next generation to be even more conscious than we are, so they don't have to go through a deprogramming process that we all had to go through, when they can just be programmed in the right way from a young age, which is, so either way we're programmed, I guess we're trying to get at. Like a human being is like it's like a advanced biocomputer, and you just have to be able to be sure to program yourself or your kin, your children, in the right way. I think that's the job of the next generation. I don't think change definitely comes through personal change in yourself, obviously, but you take that into the 3D realm, getting back to like getting out of the spiritual realm, getting to the 3D realm, you also take that as a human being and give it to the next people that are going to be here after you, and then they do the same, and it's just a snowball effect that keeps going. That's how change truly happens through the collective unconsciousness. Like as a species, is like we pass this on to the next generation. It's not going to happen. Not everybody's going to make it through this time around. It might have to happen on the next generation, or maybe even the generation after that. Like these ideas that we're talking about in this world that we're moving toward, I like to think sometimes, well, I don't like to think, but I do think sometimes that it might not even happen in my lifetime. Like this idea of being able to hold space for people like that legally without having to worry about any kind of consequences, and it's actually incorporated into our society, and we raise a more holistic next generation and a more conscious next generation. Like all of these things I think are happening very quickly relative to how they have in the past, but I don't know if it's quick enough. Like I think we're eventually going to get there, but it might not happen in my generation. I'm just doing what I can to, I guess, pave the way for future peoples on Earth to not suffer as much, to really kind of not have to, because this whole deprogramming process, it's kind of messy, it's kind of a little rocky at times. So like I would preferably not have to go through that again. I would not like to, and I would not want other people to go through that. So yeah, it's up to us to just make it so the future is a little bit smoother, I guess, so that we can all get on this wavelength of healing. It's just gonna take a little bit of time. I don't know how long. Like I like to think maybe in the next 10, 20 years, we're gonna be in a totally different world, but I don't know. It might be in the next 100 years. Who knows? Nobody really knows. I know we're gonna get there eventually. Like we're gonna be on this wavelength that we're talking about of just like being the human beings that we're supposed to be, I guess you could say. We're gonna get there. I just don't know how long it's gonna take. Like what do you think? How long do you think it's gonna take for us to live in a society where these medicines are respected and this lifestyle is respected and holistic healing is truly respected, and from there we grow?
What a great question. Oh my God. As I mentioned earlier, my work is not only primarily not tied to psychedelic substances. So my work is actually, ultimately my work is tied around the self-awareness, growing in self-awareness. And I think that's how we counter the conditioning. So I don't know how long, but the more we grow in self-awareness, the more we can detach ourselves from taking everything too personal, because life isn't personal if you think about it, in the way that we think and we're conditioned to believe. So I think the more we turn inwards and take care of our inner world, then the outer world will take care of itself naturally, because it will reflect. And if every one of us come to that realization of, let's come back down onto the earth and take care of the things in front of our nose first, before we transcend and levitate, then I think we have a better chance of moving forward quickly. And there is, in my training, we call the nervous system regulation concept, which means when we bring up children, raising children, we don't have to actually teach them anything. We don't actually have to verbalize everything and discipline them in the way that we imagine that kids should be raised. We can just take care of our own nervous system. What happens is that children, any other, like for example, you and I, we're having this conversation now. Beyond these words that we are saying and the conversations, the concepts that we are intellectualizing, there is something else is happening between us. Our nervous system is tuning into each other. So my nervous system, yours, is energetically tuning into each other. And now I didn't know you before, now I know you, and we have this conversation. And as I'm having this conversation with you, I am being super mindful and I'm being super calm. This is intentional. As I create this inner calm, safe space inside of me, your nervous system picks it up like Wi-Fi. Now we are reciprocating the same calmness, safety. This is a very unique, special container. This is where the growth happens. Imagine you bring this to kids. If a parent is super conscious to take care of their own inner space, then the child is like the Wi-Fi, quickly channels and tunes into the parent. That's it. That's all they need to do. Then the child will not have these tantrums. The child, if they do, you have to still hold the space, but there will be this symbiosis, like synchronicity with the parent. So when you see chaotic, crazy children continually in this, chaotic, rigid, there's this label called ADHD type of states. Don't forget, they are the way they are because of the parents.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, they are the Wi-Fi signals. They are continually tuning into the grown-ups. So if a child grows up in this chaotic, uncertain, triggered, dysfunctional environment, they will then be conditioned to that. And their nervous system will only know to be in that chaotic space or in a state. And this child will then continually seek the norm that is being conditioned. So that's why people who grow up in dysfunctional homes, they grow up and they also find friends and intimate partners also to give them the same chaotic nervous system activations.
Wow. Yeah. So even as a parent, it seems that the best thing that you can do for your child is work on yourself.
Take care of yourself, inner self.
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
State. Yeah.
Do you have children?
Yeah, I have two.
Yeah. Okay. So are you raising them? You're raising them in that manner that you just described?
Not the first one. That's why I've learned. First one was like, second one, I am trying. I'm doing my best. Yeah. All you need to do, like I said, just take care of your inner state. Be conscious, super conscious of your nervous system, even if you're around children. That's why, especially, in war zones and chaotic environments like natural disasters where children get affected, all they really need is a grown-up who can be in that state, calm state, for them to be not traumatized. That's all there is. Seriously, this is crazy to think, but this is what the children need. They just need to feel safe around the grown-up in order to thrive, in order to become themselves, in order to not to be afraid to express their authenticity and be vulnerable as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because you're giving that permission to them.
Like leading by example.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best that we can do. Work on yourself. That's what Ram Dass says. The best thing that I can do for me, well, the best thing that you can do for me is work on yourself. And the best thing that I can do for you is work on myself. And it's so true.
Yeah.
So true. It's like not selfishness in a way, though. It's not like trying to get any kind of personal gain, I guess, per se. It's like personal gain, I guess, maybe, but not at the expense of others. It's like you're working on yourself to become a better person, but from that, just so happens that it's like if you're truly authentic with it, and it actually is, you are growing, people will notice. And the best thing that can happen is they can use you as an example and they grow themselves. You can't tell people how to live their life and how they should go about changing up their habits, or maybe, you know, how they should act. It's like you can only do that for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
truly.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, I mean, that can be a daunting thing to really take in, to know that you're responsible for everything that happens in your life. Not necessarily everything that happens, but how you respond to things that happen in your life.
Yeah.
And that can be a little daunting, but once you are able to fully internalize that in your being, really digest that, it's actually a sense of freedom. It's a sense of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, I'm the one.
Mm-hmm.
I am the main character. It's up to me and nobody else. So once you gain that perspective of, well, I'm not going to change anybody, for me at least, I realize that, well, nobody's going to change me. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all up to me. There's no way. I feel like we're all looking for the next savior. We're all waiting for Jesus to come back and save us, type of thing. But that's not going to happen. We all got to be our own Jesus and save ourselves. It's a little scary because we do, like we said before, we want that protection. We want that kind of sense of it's going to be all right, the sense of orderliness, I guess. But you can only find that orderliness in your own way that you conduct yourself.
Yeah.
That's the game. That's the journey here. It's a never-ending journey of coming to that and realizing that, I feel like, and being able to live on that wavelength. But
Absolutely.
once you realize that, at least for me, I don't go back. Like, I'm not going back to, like, I don't need anybody to tell me that I'm safe, or anybody to tell me that I'm doing the right thing, or anybody to tell me that I should do this, or I should, like, advice, I guess. Not that I don't take advice, but I don't need anybody's, like, I have like a certain kind of internal compass, and I know
Yeah.
where to direct my life. And it's over a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of work, definitely. It took some time to be able to really tap into that, but it's possible. It's possible for all of us to be able to tap into that. And I'm not saying that, like, I ignore everybody's advice and I'm like self-righteous in that way. It's not like that. It's like we all have this like innate strength in us, like an innate drive in us that we neglect. But we all
Yeah.
have that creative aspect in us to create our own life, to literally, I mean, people have made
Mm-hmm.
it into like a corny statement like manifestation, but you can manifest anything you want and create your own life and create the framework for other people's lives as well once you get to that point. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to resonate at that frequency and that energy. The creative aspect of the universe is essentially just love. But love is creation, and to be able to love yourself fully is a beautiful thing. And then from there, you can love others, and they get that. It's contagious. It's the most contagious emotion that's in this universe. And it if people are receptive to it, it'll spread like a like a virus, I guess, the virus of love. It's like first you catch it yourself and then you spread it to others, and it's like this thing that just bounces off. If people are receptive enough to it, like that frequency is something that you just can't let go of. It's the frequency of just loving yourself enough to be able to surrender to the process that you're caught in, and from there, even though it sounds like you reach a sense of not being able to create your own life and not being able to be in control, it's actually quite the opposite. It's like being able to surrender to um, a greater sense of creation, a greater sense of purpose and control. You know, it's very powerful. And then, yeah, it's a contagious, like that whole frequency is a contagious thing, to be able to do that for others, not necessarily telling other people how to do that, but being able to be, I guess, like a shining beacon of hope in a way. It's amazing, and we can all be that. Like, it's not just me or you or anybody listening. Like, literally every human being can lead by example for each other human being. It's a beautiful thing. I know maybe many people may think that's a very idealistic statement and think I'm crazy, but I don't think so, man. I think we really do all have the ability and the potential to live um our greatest potential. Like, we have the aptitude and the capacity to do so, all of us, just simply being a human being. I really do believe that, but you just gotta, I don't know, you just have to be able to tap in. I guess just be lucky enough to be able to be in an environment where you can facilitate that for yourself and ultimately others around you. Because I think it also, I mean, like we talked about before, there's some people that just aren't going to make it. They're just not going to, like, this lifetime, they're just stuck in the rut, just stuck in the hamster wheel of suffering. And I feel for those people because, like, you know, I'm connected to them in one way or the other, and I feel their suffering in a way, and it's unfortunate. So it's just like, it's sometimes I'm like, damn, I'm really lucky. Like, the incarnation that I'm in as Gary Haskins, I'm glad that I was able to be born in this body so that I could experience life in this way. Because there's a lot of people that are just going to suffer their whole lives, and it's really unfortunate, you know, because I know that they have the ability to do so. They have the ability to live their greatest potential, but you know, they're just really lost in the sauce, as I like to say. They're really just stuck in this narrative, and it's very unfortunate, you know. Like, we're very lucky. Anybody listening that has listened this long and kind of understands what I'm saying, and me and you, Susan, we're very lucky to be able to have this mindset of kind of, it's almost like a sense of like a shield. Like, it's like a sense of like almost immortality in a way, almost like nothing can kill me. I'm like a sense of just a not really suffering as much. Like, I don't feel like the victim, like we talked about before. Like, I don't feel like the world's against me. I only feel like the world's for me. And we're very lucky to be able to have that mindset where we can create that life and continually dwell in that lifestyle and that mindset. You know, it's a sense of fate in a way, I guess. Like, why do you think? I mean, it sounds like even egotistical to say, but it's kind of like true. Like, it's almost like a sense of being chosen for this path. Like, before we incarnated here, it's almost like we were it's like we chose to be and dwell in this mindset as like a healer. But I think we can all get there. Like, I don't think it was like maybe just in this time period that we're living in 2021, it's only some people that are on that wavelength. But I think eventually in the future we can all get there. But it's a very peculiar time right now for, you know, it's not just me and you, obviously. It's not just me and the listener. There's a lot of people all over the world that are on that, but it's definitely not in the majority. That's for sure. Like, the majority of people, there's billions of people on this earth. We're definitely not all on that wavelength, because if we were, we'd live in a totally different world. So yeah, I wake up every day with this whole mindset. I'm getting to my point. With this whole mindset is a sense of gratitude. Like, I'm very thankful every day to be able to just be in this experience and truly love myself. Like I said, it's a very powerful mindset, man, because it's more than just, you know, it's more than just getting past your the skeletons in your closet, because with that comes like just peace, man. It really does. It comes to really living out to your the fullest human potential, which is our natural state of being, which is peace. I truly believe that we all are able to be on a peaceful wavelength, and I'm grateful every day. Like, every day I say, well, thank you. I'm glad that I was born here and I've had the opportunity, because very well could have not been, I guess, if if it's all just fate, if it's all just by chance. We're very lucky to be able to be here in this space that we hold for each other, you know.
So beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know where to go from here.
yeah.
Oh man. Well, I mean, do you have any other last words? We can probably wrap it up at that. We're all capable. We're all capable of coming to this. I really do believe that. If you know, you just have to make time for yourself, I guess. You know, make space for yourself to be able to explore those realms of the mind, and then take what you learn from that and come back into this world, and your life becomes this journey in a way. It becomes this unfoldment of a beautiful process. You see, like, the caterpillar becoming the butterfly right before your eyes. But the thing is, you are the caterpillar and the butterfly too. It's like you witness it at the same time that you are it. And we're all capable of living on that wavelength and becoming that beautiful version of what a human being is supposed to be. I really do think so. Maybe I'm a little optimistic. I don't know, but we'll see.
I love the optimism. I do love the optimism. My last sharing points would be, start with 5 minutes of observation. I'm not going to say the word meditation, because meditation is a complete different concept. I would say to our listeners, don't underestimate the power of 5 minutes a day tuning into your own system, to your inner world. 5 minutes a day, just observing.
Yeah.
Not to do anything with anything, just observing, taking yourself away from the crowd, the distraction, the TV, the phone. Take yourself into a corner, just sit with yourself for 5 minutes. Let things just flow and come and go, and just sit there and see what happens. Do this for 3 months ongoingly. You won't recognize the level of self-awareness that's going to come from that. And the inner capacity journey, you will begin. That's how we begin our inner capacity journey, with that 5 minutes of observation daily of our inner world, inner state. And I think my theory would be is that we are experiencing a dualistic reality. This physical dimension is dualistic. There is no getting away from the paradoxical side, the paradox. There is no getting away from the good and the bad, the suffering and the, flow states, or the joy. There is no way of eliminating one or the other, and there is no way of continually being positive. That's also a bypassing. Our job is to completely detach from the both and contain the both at the same time. There's no reason why we should not tap into the suffering any given time, because there is a beauty in suffering. It helps us grow. There is no reason why continually thriving to tap into joy. Why not? It's a beautiful state. So I think our work here is to contain the both, this dualistic reality that we are perceiving. And that's it. There's nothing more or less. And using these beautiful allies like psychedelic medicines and substances just to help yourself build that inner capacity, so you get to that stage where you are fully in your, you're centered, you're fully
balanced,
exactly, grounded, accepting, knowing that this is it. This is it. I've given this experience until the end of time. I will do my best, because again, paradoxically, the both forces also lies within us. The power, the force of the destruction, we can become this really horrible, destructive, dark person, but then there is this innate state in all of us also seeking to thrive, seeking to be our best version, tap into our highest potential. There is this urge, there is this, there is a seeking inside of us.
Yeah, yearning.
Exactly. So there is that too. Just begin with that 5 minutes of observation daily, and then see where it takes you.
Yeah,
that would be my last share.
I agree. Even though that sounds a little, if you're not used to it, that does sound a little tough, but we can all do it. It's that 5 minutes will turn into 10 minutes, turn into 15, turn into 30, and that's the whole process. But yeah, just 5 minutes a day. Disconnect from the outside and connect with the inside. It'll go a long way. 100%. 100%. Other than that, yeah, this was a great talk. Thanks for coming on here and doing this with me. This was pretty awesome. You're a cool person. You're tapped in, connected.
Thank you.
So I appreciate your time and your energy.
Likewise. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been such a pleasure to have this naturally flowing conversation, which I love. So
for sure.
Keep up the good work. Keep going with your own journey. It's amazing to watch, especially younger people, to just coming along and growing and thriving like you do. Keep sharing your message. And thank you so much for the work you're doing.
Thank you so much. You as well. Let's keep doing our thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for everybody that listened. And other than that, peace out. Namaste.
Bye for now. Thank you.